So I've gotten a number of questions, a number of people asking me to talk a little bit about the airplane itself. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a tour. This is the DA42 Series 6 Roman numeral VI, which means that it has the NG engines, the Austro diesel engines that run on Jet A1, and it also has the aerodynamic improvements, like the seams on the wings have been improved, all of the bolts have been flattened to the surface. It has the new scimitar shape MT propellers. The whole motor nacelle has been redesigned to be more aerodynamic. The air intakes look different on this one, and so forth. And altogether they've won about 5 to 7 knots on cruise speed with that. So it cruises at altitude I usually get between 175 and 180 knots at 74% power, which is 6.5 gallons per side per hour, so 13 gallons an hour total, which is really economical, I feel. Fairly inexpensive airplane to run. This airplane is also equipped with the ice prevention TKS panels. These panels have micropores. You see they're on all the flying surfaces, and those micropores are used to emit, or they pump out fluid, TKS fluid, which then flows over the wing and prevents ice from forming. On the propellers, they have these small nozzles that emit TKS fluid, which flows down the propeller and prevents ice formation there. And then there's even for the windshield this little tube here that sprays TKS fluid up on the windshield to remove ice on there. That system works very well. It is, you can imagine the dynamics of it are such that if you let ice form, it's going to be harder for the system to get rid of it than if you have the system on to begin with and don't let ice form. So it pays to be ahead of the game a little bit. Even those surfaces on the horizontal and vertical stabilizers also have the TKS panels on them. So all the flying surfaces are control surfaces. This nose is actually a radome, because this plane has the weather radar, and the weather radar sits right here inside that. So they have these, because you can't have the net of aluminum mesh for protection against lightning in this part. They have these extensions here that perform that service. Otherwise, in the skin is a mesh that conducts electricity, so that if you get a strike somewhere, it'll be able to dissipate it. The TKS fluid for this is filled up in a tank which sits in this forward compartment here. Here's an empty one. I don't leave full cans in here, but that's the TKS fluid that I put in it. DTD406B. Another compound is Aeroshell 7 compound. And you just open up this here, and you can fill up the TKS fluid right there. Takes 30 liters, and that weighs about 32 kilos. in the nose like this. Some people think that that's an issue with the balance of the plane. The plane is a little bit forward heavy naturally. The DA42s that have the Centurion engines, I know the schools, a lot of the flight schools put weights in the back when they're schooling, when they just have two people up front for the balance. And some people have talked about reinstalling these in the back. In this particular configuration, this airplane, I haven't had any issues with that, really. I find that the balance almost always just works fine. I do keep a couple of these cans, 10-liter cans of TKS fluid in the back of the plane, usually, because you never know when you're going to get icing. And that does help balance it out a little bit. But even without those, I actually don't experience balance problems. Another question I've gotten is how I mount the camera and how I run the audio cable, which is very simple, but I'll show you. I use this self-adhesive mount that comes with the GoPro. It's easy to use. There happens to be a perfect place to apply it in this plane, which is right here behind the seats, or actually right parallel with the seats, and on this hard panel, which is not upholstered. This panel is not upholstered, so you can stick it right on there. And then it also does not, it's not affected by when you open the canopy. You open the canopy or close it, that thing is not on the canopy, so it stays right where it is. And that works very simply. As far as the audio cables, this is the audio cable I use. You see, on one end is the mini plug, which is what goes into the GoPro, and the other end I put that adapter, and that goes into the intercom port, or the listening port, the earphone port for the headphones. And on the DA42 there are 4 sets of those, because you have 4 passengers right here. So this one would be set in for the co-pilot, for example, if there's no one there, or in one of the passenger spots. Connects right in, and then you just run the other end of it to the camera. As easy as pie. So another thing that people have asked me about is the oxygen system. So I thought I'd go through what I use. It's called the Mountain High system. That is to say, the manufacturer is Mountain High. What I have is I have this large tube that I fill to 300 psi. I should say first that I do not have the built-in oxygen in the DA42. I didn't get it. It added weight, although I add weight with this, of course, but I can choose how much weight I want to add from trip to trip. And I think this is very convenient, because having these separate tanks, having these separate tanks means that I can take them home and fill them. And now maybe you can do that with the built-in system too, I don't know. But anyway, this works fine for me. So this is one tank, and this is actually a backup tank that I also have, a smaller one. So on this tank you have a regulator. This regulator is just one station, but that station goes by a tube that looks like this, which you connect right there, to a pulse feeder. This is the pulse fed system, which means that it feeds as much oxygen as you need, or it feeds it at the rate that you breathe. This pulse station has 2 stations, so it can feed 2 people. You put the red tube there, and then you put your 2 cannulas in here. The cannulas look like this. This thing goes in there, and then you breathe through that. Put that in your nose. If you want to have more than 2 people in the plane, which I do from time to time, then you need a different regulator, which has 4 stations instead of just 1. And obviously with this you can feed, for example, 2 of these. And then you have 4 stations, which is what you need if you have 4 people, which is all that fit in this plane. If you get that regulator, then you have it's a different kind of tube between the regulator and the pulse feeder. The pulse feeder, by the way, is called the O2D2, Oscar 2, Delta 2. This goes between the 4 station regulator and the pulse feeder. You can also get masks. These masks that Mountain High makes. I've tried these. I didn't think it was worth anything. It didn't do anything for me that the cannula didn't do. I've actually bought a more sophisticated mask with a microphone in it, but I haven't tried it yet, so I don't really know how that is. If I fill this thing up, this big tube, then I can go out on a long trip in Europe with 6 or 8 legs and not run out. It depends, of course, how much you're up at altitude. Of course, you use more at 18,000 feet than you do at 12,000. I actually usually don't put oxygen on unless I'm going to be above, well, 10,000 in any case. But if I'm going to be at 12,000 for a little while, I don't bother. If I'm going to be at 12,000 or above, then I use it. If I'm going to be at 12,000 for a longer period, then I use it as well. And this tank, what I do with it is I install it here in the back, right here, so that the regulator sticks out between the 2 seats. And I use the nets to secure it. I tie it with a tie to the net, and it's very secure. Works very well. This one, however, the backup, I put on the floor so that I can get at when I'm flying in case I need it. And I keep this extra regulator available as well, and these tubes and everything I need, so that in case this one for some reason dies out, the big one, I can put this one on and I don't have to descend. So that's the oxygen system I use. Okay, let's look at the panel. What we've got here is, starting in from this side, we have the ECU test and choice mechanism. So these 2 buttons on the outside choose which ECU is being used. The middle position says auto, which is where it's usually left. When you test them, you can move them to A or to B, which is part of the motor run-up procedure. You have your ECU test buttons, which is when you do your motor run-up, you just push these 2 buttons and it does the motor test automatically. The ECU is the electronic control unit. It replaces all the controls for propeller pitch, RPM, the mixture. It's a injection engine, so the mixture is all handled electronically. That's all done by the ECUs, and there's 2 of them redundant for each engine, and this is where you test them. The alternator switches are right here. So if you have a motor out, for example, you'd want to turn the alternator off for the engine that you lose. That's where that switch is right here. Air duct. Then you've got the light panel. This is the panel and floodlights. These are the landing, taxi, position, and strobe lights right here. Emergency electricity to the emergency gauges. Here you've got your clocks, emergency clocks, airspeed, your official horizon, and your altitude, and then you've got a good old-fashioned compass, your ELT switch. Here you have emergency master switch, which cuts down turns off everything that's not essential. In case you have an alternator out, for example, you want to conserve electricity. This panel otherwise is the TKS panel. Here you have all your breakers. Here you have some more breakers. This is the breakers for the fuel pumps. This is the switches for the fuel pumps. Gear lever, gear lights, gear warning test, AV master, engine master, or electric master. These are your engine masters, pitot heat, and some more avionics switches here, or not switches but breakers. On the quadrant, you've got your fuel selectors. You can cross feed the fuel. If you pull this back, you'll cross feed for the left engine. You take it from the right tank instead. In case you have an engine out, for example, you need to run on one engine for a long time, you can do that for balance or for endurance. This is the only engine control on the quadrant. This is your two power levers. Then you have the heat and your parking brake and your rudder trim. This is your electric elevator trim. And here you've got the switches for the auxiliary power fuel tanks, which I have on this machine. So I can get totally 76 gallons in the machine, which I can fly. Well, I've got a planned time of 5 hours 50 minutes. 550 at 74%, which is what I usually fly at. So that's the instrument panel. Then you have your alternate air here, which bypasses the filter in case you get icing. You have your emergency gear release here, which is just a gravity release. And then up under here, you can't see it, is alternate air for the air pressure sensors. It lets in air from the cockpit, in case the static air is blocked on the sides of the airplane. And then on the stick, you've got your electric elevator trim, you've got your autopilot cancel, you have your control wheel steering, which means that when you press this in, the autopilot lets go of the control wheel for a little while, or the stick, while you steer, and then when you move your finger, it takes over again. And then on the back of it is the push to talk button for the radio. Okay, so to start, we check all of our settings here. These are in, masters are off, hydraulics are off, everything's off, the lights are all off, fuel pumps are off, alternators are on. This is good, when I just fly it myself, obviously all these things are always set correctly, but when you pick it up from maintenance, sometimes they're not. So it's good to have this routine to check everything off. None of the breakers are broken. The auxiliary fuel pumps are off also. Brakes are locked. And then we can, start procedure is turn the master on, electric master. Put the start key in so we can use it. Might as well put our seatbelt on. The Garmin system comes up. Comes up with this screen, which you'll recognize if you've used the Garmin system at all. This is your opening screen, tells you the currency of all your data in the system, all your charts and so forth. Just press, and it tells you what profile you're on. Just push enter there. Check the fuel, and it was 59.1, and that's about 224 liters, which I knew. Put it back on engine. Turn our strobes on. Left engine master on. We get the glow light here. So the glow plug's on. We wait for the glow plug to go off. Any of you who had diesel cars back in the 60s and 70s will remember this. Now the glow light's off, so you can start it. Look out there, nobody's around. Engine started, we look at our fuel oil pressure here. Then we look at the amps here and wait for them to come down to around 27. Now it's around 27, so now we can start the right engine. Glow plug goes on. Put this back in engine so we can see the oil pressure. Glow plug is off. It's clear over there. Start the right engine. Oil pressure goes up. Good. Now we turn the AV master on. We test the fire and gear warning. Put the crossfeeds on to test that the crossfeed works. We put the radar on standby, which suspends it so that it doesn't bounce around when we taxi. Put the pressure test on for the TKS fluid, low pressure test. And now we can put our phones on.
Okay, so now we're up on the intercom. So now we're waiting for the engine, coolant, the oil, the gearbox, all to warm up to where we can do our motor start. And during that time that we're waiting, we'll do our checklist. So, power levels are at neutral. RPMs are good, 710, 720, something like that. The gear warning test we did, the de-ice pressure we did, the flaps test, put them down. We had one light on, approach, 2 lights on, second light on landing, put it back up, and we do our FMS setup. Today we're flying from Gothenburg to Ängelholm. Ängelholm. It sounds very strange to me to say it in English. Ängelholm, that's what we say. So the setup is like this. I know my first point is Misma, is it? Let's see, what was it called? I don't do this flight. I actually have never done this flight. These two from these two places. Topla is my first waypoint, which is actually has got a SID, a standard instrument departure from Göteborg here, Gothenburg. And it looks like the runway is 19er. Yeah, 19er. So this will be the Topla 1 Charlie departure. So, procedure, select departure, Topla 1 Charlie, load that in, and it loads that whole departure in for us. Then we can go in and load our next waypoint, which is Misma, and that's a direct, so we just type it in. Otherwise you can load airways through this as well. It's really convenient. Misma. And then our destination is Echo Sierra Tango Alpha. That's our flight plan. So that's loaded. We can look at it just to make sure it makes sense. I'll put the range out here. Yeah, there it is. And there's the whole thing down to there. That makes a lot of sense. So we got the right waypoints and everything. All right. And now we've got this de-ice pressure low there, so that works. So we can turn this off. So our flight management system is programmed. We've got the tower in there, which is what we talked to first. And then actually, we don't. There's the tower. Now what we want is departure frequency, which I believe,
Echo, starting point for full stop land.
I believe it's
India Echo,
124675, I think is what it was. I got it here. Oh, I didn't write it down. I got it in the Jepson system here. Let's look at approach. Approach for 19er, and it is 12467, 12465. I think that's the right. Or actually, I guess now I'm on a SID, which I don't usually do here. So the SID's a problem. The frequency's on the SID, 124275. There we go. There's our frequency for departure, and our initial climb altitude is 3,000 feet. Put that in here, right there. There's no ATIS for Göteborg, but we'll get our QNH from the tower when we call up to get our clearance. So we're probably going to get a clearance to destination, the top of the 1 Charlie destination, 3,000 feet initially. And 1242, not 27, 1242 as departure frequency. So that's our radios part of the FMS setup. So FMS setup's done, autopilot test. We just put the autopilot on, and then we test that we can't move the stick. That's pretty simple. And then we put the control wheel button here, and then it re-engages, and then we turn it on. And we get the warning, and it lets go, and that's it. Floodlights, position lights, we don't need today. I got my strobe on, that's enough. Fuel selectors, back to normal. The crossfeed obviously works because the engines didn't turn off. Altimeters, we don't know yet. Standby horizon, although I can uncage. So, and the transponder will get on clearance as well. Weather radar's on standby, and the engine temperatures. How are we looking here? Yeah, see, not quite warm yet. Have to wait a little bit more. So we've got a little bit of time to wait. Okay, so we're warm enough now. The gearbox is not quite warm, but it'll warm as we taxi out. So we can call up. It's also half an hour, just after half an hour before our filed block time. So I think they should have our flight plan now. You can't do that in the bigger airports a half hour. I think they'll, like 15 minutes they'll give you. But a half hour before, they don't really like that too much. But it's not a problem with the small airports like this one.
Södertornet, Sigurd Erik Johan Niklas, område 10. Den ska starta västerut, sedan lämnar vi Askimsviken.
Niklas, klart starta västerut, eller klart starta västerut och sedan ner mot Askimsviken på 1500 fot eller därunder och starta egen uppsikt.
Klart starta västerut, lämnar vi Askimsviken, mot Askimsviken, 1500 eller under, starta egen uppsikt. Niklas.
Niklas.
Savit Tower, Sierra Echo, Mike India Romeo.
Echo Mike India Romeo, Savit.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm on the APRONET Bravo. I have a filed block time 1200, but if you have my flight plan, I'm ready for taxi. Sierra Echo Mike India Romeo.
Sierra India Romeo, taxi via taxiway Alpha to Holland Point runway 19er, and wind is 270 degrees, 19 knots, and QNH 1015.
Taxi via Alpha to holding for 19er, QNH 1015, Sierra India Romeo. So we set our QNH, nice high pressure, different from yesterday. And release our brakes, turn our taxi lights on, and we can taxi out. And it's 11:33. Zulu. 19 knots at 270. So that's a quite a side wind.
Niklas, fortsätt på sydvästlig kust tills jag
It's a 190, so it's pretty much 19 knots across.
Fortsätter på sydvästlig kust och kan du repetera det sista? Niklas.
Ja, vi ser 1000 fot minus.
1000 fot minus, Niklas.
It's a beautiful day. I mean, the instrument rating is fun, and it's fun to fly in IMC, and landing and minimums and stuff is fun as well, but...
Sierra India Romeo, are you ready to copy clearance?
Yeah, affirmative. Go ahead, Sandra.
India Romeo, clear to Ängelholm, via Topla 1 Charlie departure. 3,000 feet. Squawk 5062.
Cleared destination via the Topla 1 Charlie, initially 3,000 feet, squawking 5062, Sierra Echo Mike India Romeo.
Sierra India Romeo, correct, and line up number 19, backtrack if you need.
Okay, I need to do a motor run up, but I'll call you back for ready for departure. Sierra.
Yeah, very good. India Romeo, hold on taxiway Alpha at the holding point then, and call me ready.
We'll call you when ready, holding on taxiway at Alpha. Sierra Romeo.
India Romeo.
Okay. So we got our departure, and that's just what we thought. 3,000 feet, Topla 1 Charlie. You can figure all that stuff out if you know your first waypoint. So now we close down the canopy. I'm going to check with the back one there. We have a checklist for this. Parking brake is set. Taxi lights off. Canopy's closed. There's no door warning. The rudder trim, electronic rudder trim is set and it works. Oh, that's the rudder trim. The rotary trim is also working. Fuel selectors are normal, flaps are up. Flight controls are clear and are working. Boy, it's really blowing. And power level's neutral. MFD is on that. And we check our motor switches. Turn that on A, put that on A. Then we put them both on B. We just checked it comes back to the right RPM. Those look good. Then to do our motor run up, we just push these two buttons.
Klart sydlig kurs, Niklas.
And it spins them up to about 1950, 1960, something like that. Maximum. Runs them through a cycle. And that's it. No warnings, no fails. Looks good. Pitot heat is on. Fuel pumps are on. MFD is there. And we're all set. We're going to put the autopilot on navigation, so it goes off the GPS.
Sava Tower, Sierra Mike India Romeo, ready for departure.
Sierra India Romeo, line up number 19er, backtrack if you like.
Line up 19er, backtrack approved. Sierra.
I don't need to backtrack. I got plenty of one way here. There's not that much left anyway. Approach sector clear.
Sierra India Romeo, remain on this frequency, and runway 19er clear for takeoff.
Stay with you, and 19er cleared for takeoff. Sierra Romeo.
And the runway is verified. Let's go. Climbing at 90 knots. Above 200 feet. We can, I'm just on another heading now, but we can put the autopilot on, flight level change, and we'll put nose down to 100 knots, and we'll bring our power down to max continuous power, 92%. And it'll climb as fast as it can at 100 knots. And we're staying with her. 1,000 feet, fuel pumps off. And we're not cleared to flight levels yet, so we'll stay on QNH.
Sierra India Romeo, contact Göteborg, 124.2.
124.2, Sierra Romeo. Tack, hejdå.
Hejdå.
Sierra Zulu Victor Göteborg.
Go ahead.
Heading back to 7.
Pretty soon, affirm.
Zulu Victor, roger. You can stay 1,500 feet or below, and when ready, contact 711905.
Yeah, 1,500 and below and 1905, Zulu Victor. Tack, hej.
Tack, right.
Göteborg, Sierra Mike India Romeo through 2,000 to 3,000 on the top of the 1 Charlie.
Good afternoon, Sierra Mike India Romeo Göteborg. Radar contact. Climb to flight level 100.
Climb flight level 100, Sierra India Romeo.
Lufthansa 5,
So
November Foxtrot 3,
put the altitude up to 100 there, and then we change to
November Foxtrot, contact arrival.
standard pressure
0.125
on the Garmin system. And I don't actually know what the transition level is, because she didn't say. So we'll do this one too. So we're following this departure, which isn't the most direct route, but it gets you there eventually. We got a